Leslie Lowenfield is on death row. Leslie Lowenfield gets a date of execution. Leslie Lowenfield goes to the death house. Leslie Lowenfield sends Coach Dale Brown a letter. Dear Coach Brown, I enjoyed very much when you came up to death row to see us. I am about to be executed. Would you give me just one little visit? I would very much like to see you. Coach Dale Brown is a Christian man. Coach Dale Brown responds. He spends 1 hour with Leslie Lowenfield in Louisiana's death house, about 50 feet from the electric chair. Leslie Lowenfield talks to Dale Brown. They talk together in that hour before Leslie is executed, and Dale Brown walks out of the death chamber and he says, "This is barbarism. I am against the death penalty." Pilgrimage for Life, our Louisiana coalition, is having a campaign. I think that was a campaign where we had runners. God, we've done all kinds of stuff in Louisiana, okay? We had runners come down from North Louisiana, you know, in kind of a relay. And then when we got 50 miles out of New Orleans, we had a march. But I heard Coach Dale Brown had had this experience. I said, "Coach, would you stand up publicly and talk about your experience?" And he said, "I sure would." So we appeared on a stage just like this, a group of folks, and he told people his experience. All the TV cameras were there. Now that the book is coming out, Dead Man Walking, I was on the phone with him last week. I sent him a galley of the book, and I said, "Coach Brown, would you, when we do the press conference to launch the book in Louisiana, would you come to this?" And he said, "Absolutely." He said, "I read this book." And he said, "You know, if people could just be brought close to the death penalty and see what's really going on here, people ain't going to be for the death penalty." Which is, of course, why you write books, which is why we're out here in Michigan City, Indiana, people from Louisiana, people from all over the place. Because if you can educate people and if you can bring them close to the death penalty, good people don't want to kill other people. We know that the reason that the death penalty is in this land is because people don't generally know what's going on. I mean, Amnesty International has done a whole series of polls that show, you ask people, "You for the death penalty?" "Yeah." 75% say, "I'm for the death penalty." When they only given those two choices. When they're simply asked, "Are you for the death penalty or are you not for the death penalty?" they all go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Then when you talk to them and you say, "Suppose you had this alternative. Suppose you could be assured the person would be in prison for life. Are you for the death penalty?" It shows that it drops significantly close to 50%. And if you say to people, suppose you had the alternative that a person spent life imprisonment and restitution would be given to victims' families, it drops to only 1/3 of people supporting the death penalty. When people are even asked if you could be assured that the person who commits first-degree murder would serve a mandatory 25 years, are you for the death penalty, it drops close to 50%. What does that say to us? And it was part of the discussion that I had with the people here, these murder victims' families, who say they're for the death penalty. With one of the women I got to talk with in some depth. The lady really isn't for the death penalty. She is all upset because the one that murdered her daughter is gonna be up for parole in 1997. She's scared to death for him to be on the streets again. Not just thinking of her daughter, she's scared for the life of other people. And one of the things that we really have to face very squarely is when people do serious crimes, there needs to be serious punishment for serious crimes. But if you read the polls and look at it closely, people are satisfied with long-term imprisonment. You don't even have to put the question is, does it necessarily have to be life without pardon, probation, or parole? The polls show that even if people can be assured that someone would be in prison 25 years, support for the death penalty really drops. Where's the hope? The hope is, and here comes out of 10 years of talking to all kinds of groups on the death penalty, church groups and civic groups, lawyers groups and students. church people and people in a nursing home. The smallest invitation, the smallest audience I've had was 3 people in a nursing home that I talked about the death penalty, and 2 went to sleep. But that one that was awake, man, they really got it, and I'll win, okay? The hope is that if you look at the population of the United States, remembering also what these polls say, 20% of the people, you could have Jesus come down, spend 2 days with them, and go back, and they say that son of a bitch needs to fry. All right? That's 20% of the population. Don't matter what you do and how you try to couch your arguments, using the right amount of emotion, the right amount of statistics, whatever, they're going to say, let them fry. On the other end, they're the 20% who, no matter what you say, already know that it's a contradiction in terms for the state to kill people who kill people, try to show that killing people's wrong. Where we're aiming is for the middle. The huge portion of our population that have deeply ambivalent feelings about the death penalty. That if you can talk to them and if you can educate them, especially giving them vital information that they don't know. They don't know, for example, that now in 1993, every state, with the exception of 3, has changed the punishment for first-degree murder, that it's no longer that somebody walks out on the street after a few short years. 30 states have life imprisonment, real life imprisonment, and the rest of the states, with the exception of 3, have a mandatory 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, some of them 40 years before a person can be considered for parole. The way I feel about it is, first, we got to stop them from killing people. When people are alive, then we can work for the reformation of that. I know, really, I have good friends. Wilbert Rideau, maybe some of y'all have seen him on 2020 or whatever. He's a murderer who was sentenced to Angola in the early or late 60s. And he killed a person in a bank robbery. I mean, it was the most god-awful murder you could think of. This teller pleaded for a life, and he slit her throat. He was a 17-year-old kid, and he talks about it himself. I was a 17-year-old mad, murderous kid, and yeah, I did kill somebody. He's become the editor of the Angleite, the prison magazine that's won all kind of national awards. He took the picture that's on the back of that book. You know, he did pictures for the New York Times when they did the article that they did in the book. And he's called the most rehabilitated man in America. He's struggling for his freedom in Louisiana because the governor made a deal with the victim's family that he'd never get out. What are you going to do with that? One of the things you got to show people that what we call the criminal justice system is held together with baling wire, thread, scotch tape, and nobody knows that better than Dan, who works with the criminal justice system. And one of the things I try to show in the book is just how frail and faulty and flawed the whole system is. And how long are we going to keep throwing out the net for the people, the Ted Bundys and the Charles Mansons and the people stereotypically we say murderers are, and catch in it the retarded, and I have to stop here. Robert Sawyer was just executed by the state of Louisiana. We cleaned up death. We have lethal injection. I was just in the lethal injection chamber just 3 days ago because I was there with some 60 Minutes people interested in doing this story. I mean, I stood in that room. I've watched 3 people die in that room. They died in the electric chair. They've taken the fan out now, which would be the exhaust for the smell of burning flesh. They've painted the room white. They put a hospital curtain around the gurney, and there's a one-way see-through window where the executioner stays on the other side so the executioner cannot be seen. And we're cleaning up death. When the witnesses come into the room now, the person's already strapped down in the gurney. Kind of looks like a cross. It's padded. It's padded, all right? And covered with a sheet up to his head. And they have 2 lines going into each arm in case one fails so the other one works, with 3 drugs to kill. This man, Robert Sawyer, who was so retarded and brain damaged that when he appeared before the pardon board, the chairperson actually changed her voice. She said, This is the way she talked to him. I mean, the evidence was overwhelming that the defense had presented about his life and his own abuse. His mother had tried to kill him when he was a child. He had brain damages. She said, "Now, Mr. Sawyer, we're your friends too. Now, I want to ask you a few questions, Mr. Sawyer. What is murder, Mr. Sawyer?" And he thought, and he said, "Well, murder is when someone stops breathing." She went, "Oh, now, Mr. Sawyer, you know, my grandfather died and he stopped breathing. Was he murdered? What's murder, Mr. Sawyer?" Robert thought again, and he said, Murder's when you hurt someone real bad." This is all in the transcript. She went, "Oh, no, Mr. Sawyer, it's like sometimes you can hurt somebody real bad, but they don't die, do they, Mr. Sawyer? So what is murder, Mr. Sawyer?" And then, like, she gave the definition for him. One of the people representing him, trying to show the depth of his mental retardation, because he had no capacity for mental abstraction, said, I said to Robert, "What is reasonable doubt?" And Robert said, "You see this here cigarette?" See, he's thought very concretely about it. "See this here cigarette? Well, if I put this cigarette here into this ashtray like this, that cigarette is reasonable out." They went in, the DA, the head DA, came to this pardon board hearing because they sensed that this was going to be it for Robert Sawyer. And do you know what they said? They came back that they would uphold the death sentence. There were 2 black women on the pardon board. They voted for life. The 2 white males voted for death. The woman in the middle, appointed by the governor, very political job. As you read in this book, one of the parts of the book is the testimony of the former head of the Louisiana Pardon Board, who talks about loyalty to the governor was the price you paid when you got on the pardon board. And his confession and his testimony is in the book of what was going on that pardon board. And this woman, who was a former prosecuting attorney, okay, finally at the pardon board hearing, what happened was the DA said, "Look, you people are listening to all of this stuff they're saying about this man? The Supreme Court of the United States has looked at all of this evidence, and they have upheld the death sentence of Robert Sawyer." And he held this thick brief of a petition that they had presented to the Supreme Court. And everybody who knew what was going on in that room knew the Supreme Court didn't even look at the brief, because on some of the procedural loopholes that you got to get through to have a hearing of the Supreme Court, they had denied the hearing on a procedural loophole, saying that all of this was presented too late. Everybody knew, who knew anything about the case, that the Supreme Court had not looked at the case. I would venture to say the woman who headed the pardon board also knew the Supreme Court had not looked at the case, but it gave her her legal out. Reasonable out and legal out maybe were really close. They came back in 20 minutes. They had voted to uphold the death sentence of Robert Sawyer. And one of the things the book shows is just like the politics that goes into decisions and sentences, like how this pardon board worked in Louisiana and how it still continues to work. Because the fact is that Governor Edwin Edwards, who's our governor, hates the death penalty. He's against it, and he says to them, their instructions are, "Don't bring any of these cases to me. You take care of it." And you take care of it means uphold the death sentences and don't worry about it. Don't let it get close to me. And Howard Marcellus, whose confession and testimony is in this book, said all of this. They were buying pardons. They had files specially marked which ones the governor wanted. And what got Howard Marcellus was there was a man that he thought might be innocent. The pardon board was locked in a decision. They were split down the middle. He called up the governor's office. He was crying. And he spoke to the legal counsel, Bill Roberts. He said, "We think this man might be innocent." And the legal counsel of the governor said, "Howard, Howard, do what you got to do. You know why you're there. And all these stories come into the death penalty. People need to be assured, they need to know that they can be protected from violence, by people who do violent crimes. They need to also know how the death penalty is no more an anti-crime program than flying to the moon, right? Abdul is shaking his head here. Nobody knows that better than a black man living in this country of what real anti-crime is, of dealing with the root solutions of our problems. The hope is people like us who are enlightened, know what's going on, and have the hope in people that we can talk to people, that we can educate people in churches as the journey of hope is going to be doing. We're going to have a ripple and a wave across this state, and the people we encounter. Last night we were at this Jewish synagogue, and we were talking to people afterwards, and as people stood up in the journey of hope and just said who they were and why they had come, a number of people were just saying, wow, what a group of people you have, what a rich group of people from such different backgrounds standing up for what you believe in. Just to have people who are not passive in this society, who stand up for what we believe in, is news. I mean, people come because so often in our society it's like a big steamroller has rolled over us, and we are so passive because people feel so overwhelmed by everything going on that they feel they can't pick anything up. And the fact is, everybody here is here with their body to say what we believe in. And that is what our hope is. Our hope is that the people behind that wall whom we cannot see, some of us have come very close to them. And that is a great privilege to have done that. One of the hard things I heard the victim saying when a woman was screaming out of her rage, she said, "Those murderers are not people." And, I couldn't help. It's her pain talking. And when people's pain is talking, we just have to listen. There's nothing we can say when people's pain is talking. But she didn't know Pat Saunier as I knew Pat Saunier before he died, whose last words before he stepped into Louisiana's electric chair were to the victim's family, saying to them, "I am sorry for the pain that I have caused you." The love that he was capable of. And that's the magic, and that's the secret, and that's the hope, and that's the depth of what we do, is that we know we are one human family, one common human family, and we stand in solidarity with that. And I know this. I'm a Catholic nun. They have a pretty good reputation, okay? Like for not doing a lot of harm. They may sometimes be naive and too sweet or whatever the stereotypical notion of a nun is, okay? But we don't go around doing a whole lot of harm to people. But the big secret I know? When I lived in the St. Thomas Projects among people who are poor and black and struggling, I only look good because I've been protected from the day I was born. You put me in that situation, you put me up there against there where it's life against death, you put me there and let me see what I'll do. Our virtue that we supposedly stand on is made of sand. We all know, given a situation where we're thrust into a human situation where the protections are taken away from us, what would we be? I know I could be there, except for a different set of circumstances in my life. And who am I ever to say that I am a more virtuous or moral human being than any other human being that walks this earth with me? So it's a privilege to be here with all of you, to be part of this with all of you. The work that we do is good work. It's solid work. It's work for human rights and for decency and for justice. And can you think of a better way to spend a weekend or a week or 2 weeks? Thank you.
Woo, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. There were several other speakers that we were going to have today that weren't able to make it. Randall Dale Adams was going to try to make it today, and must have some sort of problem and wasn't able to make it. We're really going to miss Randall. He's a great speaker and a very good reason why there should not be a death penalty. We're going to have another song or two from Harder to Do. Basically, this is it for the program today. We thank all the speakers and everybody for coming. We think it's been a great day. I think it was a great march. The people in death row here in the state of Indiana know that we were here today for them. And I think by the time the news gets out, that the death row inmates across this country will know that we were saying that we believe that you're human beings too, that you have the rights that are due to a human being. Harder to do, we thank you very much. I guess you guys didn't know you were going to have me play again. They'll be here in just a minute. And then after they've played a few songs, for all the people, it's With the Journey of Hope. And going to be continuing for the rest of the day. Bob Gross has a few things to say to us. And also for everybody that's here tonight at 7 o'clock, St. Monica St. Luke's Church in Gary, 745 Rhode Island Street. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s
Only go by and feed them on your dreams. The one they pick, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh. And know they love you.
Trying to get him to do that for years. We are hosting a fundraiser. Actually, Helen Booth is hosting a fundraiser for us tomorrow evening at her home in Dune Acres. It will begin at 5 o'clock, and Sister Helen Prejean, who you heard speak earlier, will be reading from her book, and there'll be hors d'oeuvres and light refreshments. So we'd really like to encourage everyone to come. There's no fixed price. We'll just be doing free will donation, and it's open to anyone. So if you need to get directions or the address,
And grace will lead me home through many dangers, toils, and snares. I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe this far. And grace will lead me home.
You're just dying to get in this picture, aren't you? You're just dying to get in this picture, aren't you?
What?
Nothing.
That it saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
How about we sing one more time for those guys?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thanks a lot. Go forth and hope.
Whether they got caught in traffic. We would like to begin our prayer as close to 7 as we can. I welcome you to St. Monica Luke Catholic Church. Some practical instructions. The bathrooms are located in the back of the church downstairs, each at the bottom of each stairway. And of course, after the service here at the church, everyone is invited downstairs for some light refreshments, an opportunity to get to meet each other. We welcome you here to St. Monica and St. Luke. Catholics always
that we must overcome and maintain power over is fear and hopelessness. And I suggested to them that they themselves represented a manifestation of the strength and confidence in our future and in ourselves that would overcome any doubt. And as I look out at you as well, I can say the same thing. And so I'm honored to welcome each of you on behalf of all of the citizens of this community of hope, fullness, and strength, and love. God bless you all.
Was begun with the creation of one human being was in order to teach us that he who saves a human life is as though he has saved the entire world. He who takes a human life is as though he has destroyed the entire world. No matter who the taker of the life is, be it a murderer, an accident, or the state, it is still as though the entire world were destroyed. Those who have been able to overcome the natural tendency of vengeance and violence and anger have reached a spiritual level that perhaps the rest of us have not yet attained. To be able to understand that truly the only answer is love and compassion and caring. That violence is never the answer to anything. Vengeance is never the answer to anything. But indeed, love really matters, and caring and reconciliation. With that, I'm honored to introduce Bill Kelty from Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation.
The journey of hope, journey of violence and healing, 2 weeks of action against the death penalty. It's hosted by Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation. Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation is a nationwide organization composed of people who have had a loved one, a member of their family, that has been a victim of homicide. And yet, united, we stand opposed to the death penalty. We believe that the death penalty only continues the cycle of violence. We realize that many people want the death penalty as purely a matter of vengeance. But we say that vengeance is not the answer. We believe that it's love, compassion for all of humanity. We have people that are with us this evening that have joined together for the journey of hope from all over this country and also from overseas. We have we'll be spending the next several weeks at state parks here in the state of Indiana. And several people asked, and I point out that people have come to visit the service this evening, that not everybody was able to dress as I live in Portage, Indiana. I had the opportunity to stop by the house this afternoon and pick up a suit and tie. But a lot of people are dressed the way that we're going to be walking the streets and where the rubber meets the road for the next few weeks. And they asked me to point that out to you. A variety of people, and I urge you all to attend the session after the service this evening and get a chance to know us all, give us a chance to know you, and we'd love to exchange dialogue with you. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you very much.
I'd like to make a prayer for forgiveness. Glorify art thou, O Lord my God. I beseech thee by thy chosen one, and by the bearers of thy trust, and by him who thou hast ordained to be the seal of thy prophets and of thy messengers, to let thy remembrance be my companion, and thy love my aim, and thy face my goal, and thy
suffered so many episodes, if you will, of broken hearts from violence and from their anger, from their hate, and perhaps their insanity. We must continue to realize that if in fact a bitter emotion is embraced, perhaps more so should be one that embraces those who are the gun dumpers and the drug dumpers who furnish the elements of greed,
Thank you very much, Mayor Barnes, and all of you for your warm welcome. Let me please go on record today, if I have not done so at any point previously, as one who is absolutely and unequivocally opposed to the death penalty under any circumstance. Because I realize that but for the grace of God, there goes I. I'm truly honored to be here with you today at the invitation of murder victims' families for reconciliation. And I believe that this is one of the most important organizations in America because your members have moved beyond revenge, retaliation, and retribution. You are today setting the very highest standards of forgiveness, compassion, and nonviolence. If we ever succeed in abolishing the death penalty, it will happen because of the courageous, visionary, and moral leadership you are providing. Having lost my father and my grandmother to gun violence, I well understand the deep hurt and anger felt by loved ones of those who have been murdered. Yet I cannot accept the judgment that their killers deserve to be executed. This merely perpetuates the tragic, unending cycle of violence that destroys our hopes for a decent society. And I must admit that I sometimes struggle with my anger and negative feelings toward those who killed my father and grandmother. But then I remember that my father was a Christian minister who was assassinated while practicing the social gospel of service to the poor and the least of these. I remember my father saying that I plan to stand by nonviolence because I found it to be a philosophy of life that regulates not only my dealings in the struggle for racial justice, but also my dealing with people with my own self. But then I remember that my beloved grandmother was slain while playing the organ, the Lord's Prayer, as a matter of fact, in our home church, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And her husband, my grandfather, Daddy King, said, even after her death, that I will never stoop so low as to hate anybody. I remember that my father and grandmother dedicated their lives to carrying forth the unfinished work of Jesus Christ, the prophet and my Savior, who said that we must turn the other cheek, who said we must put up our swords and love and pray for our enemies and those who would abuse us. And so this journey to genuine forgiveness, this journey of hope, has definitely been a difficult pilgrimage for me. But I feel like I have finally crossed over. I understand today that the need for revenge and the anger that accompanies it is a sickness of the soul that ultimately destroys the one who harbors it. Those who thirst for revenge
Texas has elected its first woman senator for the first time ever. Good evening to you. The election gives Kay Bailey Hutchison the honor. This also means Texas has Republican senators for the first time in more than 100 years. That
death penalty.
Today is kicking off the journey of hope. 2 weeks of action against the death penalty.
Send them to the electric chair, not club men. No, they should stay where they were and let us be here.
But there has to be justice. There has to be justice.
Death penalty is not justice.
People cannot know that they can get away with murder and live a normal life. I'm sorry, Mr.
Absolutely.
But what right do we have to take the life away from somebody else? Death penalty, no!
We believe that most people want the death penalty purely as a matter of vengeance.
All right? Heaven died, don't you know? Indiana death penalty's got to go.
We say that vengeance is not the answer. It's never the answer, and we believe that the answer is love and compassion for all humanity.
Hey, they should all die, the fuckers! Yes, yes! No, no!
We're starting out here in Michigan City, the home of death row for the state of Indiana.
Abolition! Yes, yes! Death penalty! No!
For me, the best way to honor my little girl's life is to say that all life is sacred and worthy of preservation. Her life was a gift of such goodness and sweetness and beauty and joy to me that to kill someone in her name is to violate that goodness and sweetness and beauty that she was.
The campaign will go to 15 Indiana cities, including South Bend, as well as Chicago, Louisville, and Dayton, Ohio. Well, time now for a first look at our forecast. Here's Nancy.
Now that many of the people who are my schools like this and going to churches to talk and listen and try to have people understand why we're against the death penalty. Many of these people are family members of people who have been murdered. Okay, and they've lost some of their dearest family members, but yet they are strongly opposed to capital punishment, to the death penalty. Okay, and they fight against it. They're not just talking about it, they actually fight against it. And we're here to try to talk with you all and engage with you all about this issue. We're going to show a video. It's only 18 minutes, which is about the journey of hope. And after that, then we're going to have a real brief presentation from two people who have a connection with this school, and you'll hear about the connection with Lew Wallace High School. And then we're going to go outside and plant the tree. I don't know if you all are going to have time for that part of it, but there is going to be a tree planting ceremony in symbolism of life and some of the other things that you're going to hear about. So again, thank you very much for your attention and for listening.
That he was locked in his overhead, and he was beaten so severely that he never regained consciousness.
My mother-in-law was murdered in Mount Pleasant, a little community outside of Charleston, South Carolina, in 1972. And I was
why we're here today and why we're going to be in Indiana, going to different towns through the 20th, and why people in their various communities across this country work on this issue and work on the issue of violence generally, and for us to try to work out ways to solve problems among each other without killing each other, without harming each other, and thinking about love and forgiveness and thinking about alternatives to killing, not just for us as individuals, but for the state to think about, the government of the U.S. to think about alternatives, other ways. So now I want to introduce to you two people who you saw in the video, and as I said, they have a connection with Lew Wallace High School, and they'll explain to you, for those of you who don't know, why we are here at this particular place today. So Phil Kelty and Judy Wire, would you please come up?
It's a real honor to be here at Lew Wallace High School today. The first time I was ever at Lew Wallace High School, I was probably about 7th or 8th grade, and I came with my father to a concert. I remember a plaque that was somewhere in the school hallway, and my dad said, "Oh, look, there's different people that went to Lew Wallace High School that died during World War II. There was a special plaque in memory of them." And we came, and my dad went to look to check out the members of his class when he graduated here in Lew Wallace in 1939. And as he was looking at the different names, he came across the name of Robert Pelkey, which was him. So he realized it wasn't people that had been killed during World War II, but it was people that had served in the war. May 14th, 1985, 4 ninth grade students from New Wallace High School decided they were going to skip school that afternoon. And they wanted to go play video arcades, and they didn't have any money. And so one of the girls suggested that the other 3 girls knock on the door of 4449 Adams Street, which my grandmother lived, and they get into the home on the pretext of wanting to take Bible lessons, and they would be able to rob her. Things went awry, and my grandmother ended up being very brutally murdered. It was a very terrible shock to our family, to the Glen Park community, and also to New Wallace High School. And what we're here today is to plant a tree as a symbol of life and as a symbol of healing. And we think it's very appropriate to be here at New Wallace High School. And we also have a plaque which we are dedicating to the school and to the principal and to all these students. And it's a symbol of life, a symbol of healing. Violence begets violence, and that's why we're opposed to the death penalty. Paula Cooper was sentenced to death for the murder of my grandmother. She has now been taken off of death row, but it wouldn't gain anything by taking Paula's life. If the taking of Paula's life would have brought my grandmother back, then I would have been all for it. But nothing can bring back the life of a lost loved one. And Paula Cooper is a human being. And to say that the state just doesn't have a right to take her life, and forgiveness is the answer. And this is the message that we're spreading throughout the Midwest as we go on the journey of hope. This is really the first week. We've got about 15 more days. We're going to be visiting about 20 more cities with our message of hope and love and reconciliation. And I just thank you all very much for the opportunity to do this.
I do want to say something. I was reading this and I was thinking that, I don't know if you, well, you were here when it happened, it was a long time ago, but you still in some ways may share in that shame that was brought to your school. And anytime anybody wants to do that to you, you take and you show them this plaque and you say, Ruth Pelkey's grandchildren put this plaque here to say, we've reconciled our feelings, and we've come here to reconcile with you today. So you take them and you show them this, and you say, hey, it's okay.
Mr. Mayor, sir. We would like to present this plaque to Mr. Freeman. I'd like to read you what the plaque says. It's a very beautiful plaque. This tree is planted in memory of Ruth Pelkey, Nana, by her grandchildren and murder victims' families for reconciliation, MVFR, in the spirit of love, compassion, and forgiveness. New Wallace High School here in Indiana, Journey of Hope, June 7, 1993. Thank you all very much.
So on behalf of the New Wallace family, we gratefully accept this plaque. As you mentioned moments ago, this is a healing process. We too at New Wallace need the healing process. Still to this day, the sector of this event is a cloud over our school and over our students who presently attend. We hope, as you indicated, this will become the beginning of the healing for New Wallace and my students. Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any questions? Things you'd like to ask about the first vote, about murder victims' families, death penalty, or about what we're going to be doing on the rest of our journey?
About Paula, Bill writes to her, we have a relationship through writing, though we've never met. About anything, any questions you might have? You look like you got a question.
I would like to make a statement. Paula was in 10 schools by the time she was in 9th grade. She never really did have a chance to get her education on track. Since Paula's been in prison, she has got her GED, her high school equivalency She also has been taking college correspondence courses by a fund that was set up by Italian people that supported having her taken off the death row. And within the next few months, Paula should be graduating with a college degree. She's been making very good grades, A's and B's. And Paula's not the same sort of person she was when she was 15 years old. She has definitely changed. She has responded to the love and compassion that other people have shown her. And what Paula's goal is to better herself and get as much education as she can and try to help other young people avoid the pitfalls that she fell into. And I believe Paula's going to be very successful at that. At one time, the majority of people here in Northwest Indiana wanted Paula Cooper to die in the electric chair. But I believe someday people are going to see that Paula is a benefit to society and be glad that they didn't take her life. Yes, ma'am.
What happened to her baby?
Paula never had a baby. Karen Quarters was pregnant at one time, but not Paula. And in fact, one of the reasons that led to the arrest was that Paula had been taking birth control pills, and she left her jacket at my grandmother's home, and so the police knew right away that they were looking for a Paula Cooper. They weren't really sure just which Paula Cooper or where she lived or anything like that. But Paula had never had a baby. But Karen Quarters was pregnant at one point. I'm not sure what happened.
Was she the only one that was singing to death?
Okay, there were 4 girls involved with the crime. April Beverly, who knew my grandmother and set her up, stayed outside the home while the murder took place with the other 3 girls in the home. All 4 of them were now at the Indiana Women's Prison. April Beverly was sentenced to 25 years in prison for her role in the crime. Denise Thomas was sentenced to 35 years for her role in the crime. The prosecution tried for the death penalty for Karen Quarters and for Paula Cooper. Karen Quarters' sentencing hearing was first. She was sentenced to 60 years in prison. The judge elected not to give her the death penalty. And then when Paula went to trial, the judge deemed that she was the dominating force in the murder and sentenced her to death.
Any other questions? Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Don't be bashful. All of a sudden, everybody's quiet. Well, thanks a lot for yeah.
I want to say something. I think you said a lot on your part to be a person. I mean, that was a grandma. I don't know if I did it to do it.
It's because, to me, and I think also with Judy, it's because of who our grandmother was, and she was a very special person, and I was convinced that that's what she would have wanted us to do, and because she was a very special person, and because we all have a very special God, and we think that's what he wanted us to do.
She lived a life that exemplified unconditional love.
What's that? I have corresponded with Paul. We've exchanged over 200 letters, but the Department of Corrections won't let us visit, and the reason is because they feel that I'm a security threat, and they think that I will get into the prison and I will try to cause her harm. And they say that the state of Indiana has a policy that they don't allow the perpetrator of a violent crime to meet with family members, and so I haven't ever been able to meet with Paul yet. But someday, yes, I would love to meet her. I'd love to put my arm around her and tell her that I love her.
Are there any questions to ask?
I want to let her know that I love her.
She did. You must have a big heart.
Well, I have a big God that has touched my heart.
Yeah, I believe in God too, but I figure, no one has the authority to take anybody else's life. No.
That's why we're all here, because we're opposed to state killing, and we don't even think the state of Indiana has the authority to take a life. That's why we're all here.
I think one thing that's important to remember is what Bill pointed out was that Paula is not the same person she was when that happened. And it is possible for all of us to change.
Yeah, it's possible, but
And Paula's done it.
don't trust everybody.
Well, you can. That's true. It's hard. But there are people who do that.
We're not saying people shouldn't be punished for crime. Paula should be punished. I mean, she should be in prison for many, many, many years. But where we draw the line with the Journey Colvin Murder Victims Families for Reconciliation is that it's wrong to take a life, whether it's Paula Cooper or whether it's a state. And I personally, I believe that we should hate the sin, but love the sinner. Hate the sin of murder that Paula Cooper committed, or the acts of violence that take place throughout this country daily. But we're to love Paula Cooper. There's a verse in the Bible where Jesus was talking. He said, an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was for for days of old. He told us how he was bringing us a new way to live. And he said to love one another. He said, love those that hate you, love those that persecute you, love those that do all manner of evil against you. And to me, that was what Paul teacher did to our family, was all manner of evil. And yet Jesus commands us to love her, and that's the personal reason why I got involved.
When we execute other people, they are human beings. And we think often of the victims, and I'm a victim. I know what a victim looks like. I have a mirror. But when we kill, we repeat the crime. There was a man named Willie Leroy Jones, and he was my best friend. And he was executed. And I watched a healthy man leave me and walk out that door. And I know that he would not harm a hair on anyone's body outside. If they had let him go, he would not ever harm anybody. And I loved him. And although people in my family, 2 people were killed in my family, separate incidences, I've also lost 2 others that were on death row, and I love them. One of them I adopted as my brother. I never had a brother. His name was Ron McCliskey, and his case proved that the death penalty was and is racially applied. You have to seek all the facts. You can't just go by impulse. And the Bible also says, vengeance is mine, meaning God, not thine. We're not to judge others. And there is no deterrent in this. And we're repeating a crime that's more horrific sometimes than the loss of a victim. They're tortured to death. Warren McCliskey was killed, even though his case did prove that the death penalty is racially applied. And I call that.
We wish we had more time to talk with you all, because I have a feeling there's lots and lots we could probably stay here for a long time and talk about this issue. You know, but unfortunately, we just were told we really have to cut the program to an end right now because you all have to return to your classes. I think some of you may join us outside when we actually physically are going to plant a tree on the grounds of Blue Wallace in memory of Nana, Bill, and Julie's grandmother, and in the spirit of reconciliation and love and compassion and hope for the future that you all are. So thank you again very, very much for your time and attention.
I'll let you guys put it in.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. This is my toaster.
I'm riding back with you, okay, Mom?
Judy's taking my car to her house.
Are you taking it back to the camp?
I've never contacted anybody told me that.
Mike, do you know if your van had the water cooler in it? It's in the blue, it should be in the blue van.
The blue van, okay. Good. Yeah. If you just bring that water cooler.
Grab that one, right?
About 2 points.
Grab up.
I thought you brought it.
It'll be about, in terms of that
Thought you're supposed to point it in there.
I don't know. I don't think so. How can the roots get out?
Maureen, where are you? Maureen, honey? Yeah, I'm just trying to get photo sort of opportunity. I told them to stand together, but they should probably get closer when the tree is actually planted.
well, Tony, do you want to select somebody to put it in, physically putting it in?
Yeah, I think so. Well, Bill and Judy, and with 2 or 3 students like to, with Bill and Judy, put the tree actually in here? Yeah. Michelle? Opportunity. Come on, Michelle. Come on, girlfriend. Come on now.
Mike Walsh.
Yeah, good.
Mike,
And is there any other students?
The Jamma lady, is there anybody else here?
There you go. What's your name? You want to take pictures? Tamika and Michelle. Tamika, what's your last name?
You want to come up here with us, Ellen?
Tamika White and Michelle?
Most of the people that's on the journey that are victims' family members actually are throughout Northwest Indiana. They speak in various places and schools and things like that. So a whole lot of them aren't here, but we do have some other victims' family members here that'll be standing up here with us because this is really a memory of all victims' families.
Shalonda and Michelle and are going to help you plan the trip. I think if we all grab hold and put it in.
Well, okay, let's
We should have the
Mike
principal
Loss.
too, right?
Where is Mike?
He went to get
Oh,
water.
he's coming. He's bringing the water.
Mike Lawson is from Indianapolis. His brother was murdered one day while he was delivering papers, and somebody was very paranoid, thought it was somebody else. And that's why Mike was killed. Mike, went up and we have to go through this. I'm not sure how we're going to do it.
Can we have the principal too, and with the plaque? You got the little join in the picture?
How many you want me to take, Mo?
Well, just wait, dear. How many have you taken?
3.
Just hang on, they're not even ready yet.
So every time a new person walks up, I'll take a picture.
Okay, now take it when they all get their hands on it. Okay.
Okay, that's right. One shot each. All right.
I'll take a turn. Yeah.
How many pictures are in there?
24.
So good.
There's more film in the box. Rewind it. Rewind it.
Just stick it in like that.
Oh yeah, make sure it's gonna catch. Yeah. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
I would like to say maybe one more thing is that while Judy and I were walking up here, I believe that my grandmother has a smile on her face today, and it's very, very rewarding
Yeah.
and happy. Thank you all very much.
Take a picture of the tree.
You're just picture hungry today, aren't you?
Yeah.
We can move it down.
Oh, that's a good picture. That's good.
I've done a lot of things in my life that I need to be forgiven for, and I would continue to think in the future that I would need to be forgiven for. The Bible tells us that if we don't forgive others, then our Father in heaven is not going to forgive us.
Well, I could understand, like, when they said, well, what if it was our family member who did it? You know, when they turn it on the other shoe, or however you put it, shoe on the other foot or whatever, then I can understand what they're coming from.
Well, see, that's why our organization, we feel so powerful, because it is people that tap into their family and they're saying, look, taking of another life isn't the answer. And the healing took place in our lives, basically through forgiveness. And we're just sharing that story, you know, as we travel throughout the Midwest.
I never thought of it that way. Well, maybe made a comment. Took somebody in the death penalty or something, you reverse it. Picture hungry. You never thought of it as a crime because of, you know, the law.
See, I've got a thing at home that says, why do we kill people? To show people that killing is wrong. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Well, that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is just get people to think about new thoughts and new approaches to the ideal of what is a proper punishment, and thinking of state killing. And there's only two countries, industrial countries, that have executions. That's the United States and South Africa. And all the rest of those, basically the democratic free society countries, have got rid of the death penalty as a barbaric practice. And there's only 6 countries throughout the world that will execute juveniles for crimes they committed. It's countries like Iraq and Iran and the United States. I mean, we don't even normally associate with these other countries, but in the area of executing juveniles, we line up with countries like Iraq.
Just what you do. Wheel you around like the guy in
Want to see that,
the
Jake?
lambs.
Oh, I want to shake your hand. My name is Heather.
Heather, it's nice to meet you, thanks. Pardon? It's nice to meet you, thanks. All right, well, have fun in class. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for your question. That was great.
Her name's Michelle.
All right. I have your wash I'm
Right.
doing.
She was taking off
At my house. What a starch in here. Just a little break of soda. Not much.
She went. She's going to go back to her house.
You
While
okay?
everybody goes out leafleting.
Somebody else good. Did you need more blankets? Sure? Okay. Okay. So everybody's okay? You don't need anything? Okay. Daniel wants to shit.
I was one of them.
Get together. Oh, that's great. Come on, get the picture. I'm sorry you're all so shy. Wait. I want to get show your butt, girl. Come on, show your butt.
Move. Hey, Mom. Push. I missed it, because you wouldn't get out of my way.
Want to take a picture, Mom?
You're a minute man.
And you took a picture.
Very good.
Yeah, exactly. And the longer they delay, going back, the longer they not being glad.
Oh, I'm gonna hang. You're on picture tape.
You haven't been over here.
We won the state championship. Yes, we did. Our track team.
All right. And I made a letter. I got some too. I got a letter on the volleyball team.
Charlie. I want to come. On the track thing.
Oh, really?
Ready for
Good luck to everybody. Study hard.
our class is laughing.
Yes, definitely. Study hard, work hard.
We need you. We need you in the struggle.
First to the home base. That's at Maryville.
I had to go on with him for somewhere along the way. Probably pretty rare.
You're like right where
We'll also have some of our folks speaking.
you're not white.
There isn't a white one here.
You're either in blue or light gray. I know boy can.
If it's a woman driver or a female driver.
Then you're green. So yeah. Yeah, dirty time. We have a new concept. We invented a new time zone.
Take people to travel.
When you got the opportunity.
5 o'clock or so at the church in Miller. Do you want to go to that, or do you want to wait until it's time for the concert?
No, we could go to that. Dee Dee,
Mike, wanna play?
And they ask a few questions. You know, let me show the video and who did present class.
Actually, brought you.
Jay, man, you don't watch it. Fast time, Sergeant. Charles Barkley, this. Oh, Marquis. The big Shaquille.
In 1983, Ruth Pelkey was stabbed 33 times by a 15-year-old Gary Lew Wallace High School student. That student, Paula Cooper, was sentenced to death. However, that death sentence was overturned after an extensive international lobbying campaign led by Bill Pelkey. Pelkey and his sister have forgiven Paula Cooper for the brutal murder of their grandmother, and now Pelkey is part of the organization called Murder Victims' Families for Reconciliation that strongly opposes the death penalty. That organization is spending the next 2 weeks traveling the Midwest on what it calls a journey of hope. That journey stopped at Lew Wallace High School this morning. Mary Jacek was there and has more in this report.
This morning, the Murder Victims' Families for Reconciliation's Journey of Hope stopped at Gary Lew Wallace High School to share their message with students and to plant an everlasting symbol of forgiveness.
We planted a tree at Lew Wallace today because it was from Lew Wallace High School where 4 girls skipped school on May 14th of 1985 and went a few blocks from here and brutally murdered our grandmother.
The group strongly opposes the death penalty and instead promotes compassion and forgiveness for those who commit crimes.
I was convinced that my grandmother would have had love and compassion for Paula Cooper, and Paula Cooper was on death row, and I was convinced my grandmother would have been appalled by the fact that the state of Indiana was going to take her life, that her family would suffer as our family had suffered at my grandmother's death. I was convinced that my grandmother wanted someone in our family to have love and compassion for Paula.
Although many of the students said that they would find it very difficult to forgive somebody who committed such a heinous crime against one of their family members, they said they are very impressed with the message that the Journey of Hope is trying to convey.
I think that it's something good, but I still think it would be hard for me to forgive if something like that happened, but I understand because I'm not the sort of person who can kill either.
It sent like a good message out, and I believe in what they stand for and everything. I really do. I think it took a lot for them to forgive somebody for doing something like that.
The Journey of Hope will continue until June 20th and visit several cities throughout the Midwest. They say at each stop they will plant a tree which they hope will symbolize both forgiveness and hope. Reporting from Lew Wallace High School in Gary, I'm Mary Jacek for 56 News.
And our 56 feedback question tonight is, should the state do away with the death penalty? Let us know what you think by calling 756-5656 before the break. We'll have the results later in this newscast.
Well, charges have been filed against one of 2 rape suspects, 34-year-old Aubrey Parker of Gary.
Murder Victims' Families for Reconciliation is an organization imposed to people who had family, members of their family had been murdered by homicide, and yet united we stand opposed to the death penalty. Vengeance is never the answer. Love and compassion for humanity is the answer. As we take this message throughout Indiana, we're very happy to have the opportunity to stop here tonight at Indiana University. This time I would like to introduce Mr. Bob Gross, the organizer of the Journey of Hope.
My only purpose is to introduce Charlie King. I think some of you here in Gary are here because when you hear he's coming to town, you show up, and I'm glad to see you. We'll hope to get to know you tonight. Others of us are here because we're on this 2-week journey of hope, and we're glad to be in Gary today. For many of you, you could introduce Charlie to me just as well, but I know him as someone who has brought songs that bring life, songs that tell stories about people. Charlie's songs touch on those important issues that we all care about, and often through a person's story. So it's a way in which really touches all of us. I was really pleased when he said that he could join us not only for a concert tonight, but also for this week of the Journey of Hope. And I'm real pleased to invite you to welcome now Charlie King.
I'm amazed already. Usually when people say, we have a speaker who will give a few opening remarks, I can usually count on 20 minutes to tune up. Talk to someone. That's the wonderful thing about folk music. It strips away the thin veneer of professionalism that divides the performer from the audience. When I was a child, my grandmother rose before dawn. And there between dream and wake, I'd hear the tea kettle sing, and then she was gone. And sometimes I'd rise and peek out up over the sill, watch her go walking out slowly towards Carawan Hill. One morning I rose and followed her out in the dew, with coat on right over pajamas. She laughed when she saw me appear. She said, Lord, look at you. Watching the dawn, she held me and gave me a kiss. Said, child, ain't a sermon been spoken convincing as this. 'Cause everybody needs something that money can't buy, that they can't take away. As hard as they try, oh try, that the world can't make weary, and time can kill. I've got this sunrise on Carawan Hill. Some time ago, my grandmother passed in the night, and I spent a night in her bedroom to sit and remember and cry and wait for the light. And just before dawn, with everything peaceful and still, I found myself walking out slowly towards Carawan Hill. 'Cause everybody needs something that money can't buy, that they can't take away. As hard as they try, though try, that the world can't make weary, and time can't kill. I've got the sunrise on Carawan Hill. It's a nice song. I'm just learning. Would you like to sing it with me? Everybody needs something that money can't buy. Everybody needs something that money can't buy, that they can't take away, that they can't take away. As hard as they try, as hard as they try, though try, that the world can't make weary, that the world can't make weary, and time can't kill, and time can't kill. I've got the sunrise, I've got the sunrise on Carawan Hill. Thank you. That was written by Andrew Lawrence. Sing a song about a hero in my life. I got a lot of heroes. This is a person who does small things very well. His name is Stanley Kozera, and Stanley was the boiler room man at the Acushnet Sporting Goods factory in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And I don't know if you ever worked in a boiler room. He worked all by himself. It was hot. He worked 12-hour shifts 4 days a week. It was boring. And he had to find some way to cope with his loneliness and the long shifts. And he came up with such a creative way of doing it. It really inspired me to write this next song. It's called The Dancing Boiler Man. Hear me whistle a tune from the boiler room in the golf ball factory. There once was a time I worked out on the line, but that ain't the life for me. Not since I got the car at the Square Dance Hall. It changed my whole life in a way. While they're all manufacturing, I'm back here practicing, dancing the day shift away. He went over into the corner, and underneath the bench he had a box tucked away. And in the box there was an old phonograph player and some beat-up albums, and he put a record on, and then he started taking out all these small black footprints, which he laid out on the floor in elaborate patterns, and started going through his routine for the square dance that night. It was Adam and left with the boiler, and then a grand right and left round the stack, up with do-si-do to those guys in row. Check the pressure, promenade back, got a few more years left as a toiler, till I make my retirement back. Then I'll just roll away with a half a sachet and get my chance to square dance my fool life away. There used to be gloom in In this boiler room, I just stare at the gauges all day. Then me and the wife got some juice in our life. We learned to dance at the YMCA. Now the record I play, it reminds me each day, don't you let the good life pass you by. Neath the steam pipes, red hot, oh I'm so hot to trot. Gonna dance till the day that I die. Singing Allemande left with the boy, and the grand riding left round the stack. A quick do-si-do to those dials in a row. Check the pressure, promenade back. Got a few more years left as a toiler till I make my retirement. Hey, hey, hey. Then I'll just roll away with a half a sachet and get my chance to square dance my fool life away. Hey, hey. I'll get my chance to square dance my fool life away. Of the United States, Mitchell Palmer, and they were arrested in a series of arrests known as the Palmer raids, which were meant to gather up foreign-born radicals. And they were tried for a crime that occurred many miles away from where they were. The only witnesses that could attest to their presence elsewhere were other immigrants, so they were discounted. And then the trial really started to take off when they started talking about their politics. Well, to make a long story short, their case was railroaded through, and in 1927, they were executed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You can go to Boston City Hall, get a copy of their death certificate, list the cause of their death as legal homicide. And there were worldwide movements to try to save the lives of Sacco and Vanzetti, but it came to the grim conclusion that it did in August of 1927. And I didn't learn about these two men until I left Massachusetts at the age of 18, moved to Ohio, and started listening to the music of Woody Guthrie. I heard a song that goes like this. Woody used to sing on the streets and would sing in the fields, didn't have a microphone, had to figure out good ways to get people's attention. I think that's a good explanation of the opening line to this song. Hey there, did you hear the news? Sacco worked at trimming shoes. Vanzetti was a peddling man, and he pushed a fish cart with his hands. Two good men's a long time gone. Two good men's a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. Left me here to sing this song. Two good men's a long time gone. Two good men's a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. Left me here to sing this song. Sacco was born across the sea, somewhere over in Italy. Vanzetti born of parents fine, and he drank the best Italian wine. Sacco sailed the sea one day, landed up in Boston Bay. Vanzetti sailed the ocean blue, and he ended up in Boston too. Two good men's a long time gone. Two good men's a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti, Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. Left me here to sing this song. Sacco's wife, two children had, and Sacco was a family man. Vanzetti was a dreaming man. His you ask me about a payroll robbery, 2 clerks were killed at a shoe factory on the streets of South Braintree. Judge Webster there told his friends around he would cut those radicals down. Anarchist bastards was the name Judge Webster called these 2 good men. 2 good men's a long time gone. 2 good men's a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. Left me here to sing this song. And I'll tell you the prosecutors' names: Katzman, Adams, Williams, Kane. The judge endured, jury strutted down. They done more tricks than circus clowns. Vanzetti docked in 1980, slept along our dirty streets, told the workers organize. On the electric chair he dies. 2 good men's a long time gone. 2 good men's a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. Left me here to sing this song. If you ever go to Plymouth, in North Plymouth, you can still see Vanzetti's neighborhood. You can see the cordage factory where he worked his last industrial job before he was blacklisted throughout New England. That's why he ended up being a fish peddler. You can see the house that he lived in. There's no plaque on it or any kind of monument, but the people in the neighborhood remember it. It's on So-So Lane, S-U-O-S-U-O. It's not too far out of the center of Plymouth. You can find it if you ask people. All you people who want to be free, work like Sacco and Vanzetti. Every day find ways to fight on the union side for workers' rights. All you people on So-So Lane, sing this song and sing it plain. All you little people, just come along, jump in with us and sing this song. 2 good men's a long time gone. 2 good men's a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. Left me here to sing this song. In 1977, I learned a bit about Sacco and Vanzetti. There's a great book, by the way, called Boston by Upton Sinclair, and tells a wonderful story of that, the movement to save Sacco and Vanzetti, and the dreary story of the grinding wheels of justice in Massachusetts. Anyhow, a group of us got together on the 50th anniversary of their execution to remember Sacco and Vanzetti. And I wrote this song for that purpose, and it takes its chorus from the words that Vanzetti spoke to the judge upon hearing sentence of death. It's called 2 Good Arms. all such crime. Who will remember Judge Webster there, one hand on the gavel, the other resting on the chair? Who will remember the hateful words he said, speaking to the living in the language of the dead? All who know these two good hearts know I never had to rob or kill. I can live by my own two hands and live well. And all my life I have struggled to rid the earth of all such crime. Who will remember the hand upon the switch that took the lives of two good men in the service of the rich? Who will remember the one that gave the nod, or the chap standing near at hand to invoke the name of God? We will remember this good shoemaker. We will remember this poor fish peddler. We will remember all the strong arms and hands that never once found justice in the hands that rule this land. And all who knew these two good men know they never had to rob or kill. Each had lived by his own two hands, and they lived well. And all their lives they had struggled to rid the earth of all such crime. And all our lives we must struggle to rid the earth of all such crime.
Reconciliation. Take Suzanne, who you're going to hear from after the break. Her work, her job is her hairdressing, but her work is this kind of work, is speaking the truth to people. And there are many more people on this journey that are doing that work. Some folks will be giving you the chance. You don't even have to get up and go someplace. We'll be bringing the proverbial hat, which in this case is a rectangular cardboard receptacle. Go ahead. That will come right by, and you can make the contribution that you would choose to make for the work of this. MVFR is the organization of Murder Victims' Families for Reconciliation, and it's launched, you might say, by this journey of hope, but there's so much more work this group needs to do. Just go ahead and walk right through. And some of that work that you would be supporting is to establish support groups for family members of murder victims. Because there are folks who don't have someone who understands what they've been through. And they need to have someone who can understand that. And they need to have someone who can help them work through all of the steps, including coming through to the healing. But another part of that is to speak out against the death penalty. That's been one of the main purposes of MVFR, and it continues that brave voice. It's not easy for any of us to speak out against the death penalty, many times in places. But it's especially hard for those who have lost a family member, because it brings back so much, and it puts them at risk in that way. So ask you to support them in that work that they need to do, and ask you to join us all in doing it. So take a little stretch break then.
And I'll tell you what, after Charlie sang that song about USX, it made me really glad. About 27 years ago, I used to work for US Steel, and now I transferred over to Bethlehem along with Wayne, so really made me glad that we made that move. As I look out over the room, I see a lot of people I've met at different stages of my life. Mike standing in the back, I met him down in Texas. Buzz, I met him down in Texas. And met Ed and Mary, I think, in Georgia. Helen Frazine, I met her down in Florida. Sister Gemma, son of Marge from Florida to Georgia. In 1988, I believe it was, I had an opportunity to do a television program in Chicago for the Oprah Winfrey Show. It was a program called Forgiving the Unforgivable. And I was seated next to a young lady that had a very, very remarkable story. As I listened to her that day, she told a story that impressed me very deeply. A story I'll never forget. We're going to have an opportunity to hear that in just a few minutes. After the session was over with, Suzanne Bosler and my cousin Judy Good was also there that day. We went out and had something to eat after the television program. And we began a friendship that day, and it's a friendship that'll last forever. And very happy to welcome now Suzanne Bosler has a few words to say to us.
Thank you for the introduction. I feel blessed also to be able to meet you too, Bill. I really know that. I believe I've seen somebody or several people in here. I guess they're gone now, but that was in the class earlier that I talked to. First, I want to share with you an incident that happened in my life that hit home to me and helped me come to where I am today on the subject of death penalty, which I do not agree with at all. December 22nd, 1986, my father, Reverend Billy Bosler, and myself were in the parsonage right by our church in Miami. The doorbell rang. My father went to answer it, and as soon as he opened the door, he started making very abnormal noises, and I knew something was wrong. I went out, and the gentleman had already closed the door and caught my father in the kitchen doorway and was stabbing him in his chest many times already. When I saw that, I screamed, and he turned around and realized there's somebody else in the room. I went towards him to try to help my father. I kept going towards him, I never turned back. And he came, as I got up close to him, and was going to stab me in the front. I turned and he stabbed me 3 times in the back. I went down. My father tried to get up to help me. James Bernard Campbell turned around and started stabbing my father in the back many times. He went down, and I got up tried to get up to help him. And my father was collapsed on the floor again. James Bernard Campbell led me into the other room with his hand on my shoulder, the knife up by his head, looked me straight in the eye, and was going to stab me in my face. I turned my head, and he stabbed me twice in the head and shattered my skull. As I went down, my father had crawled to the side to go attempt to get help, and he collapsed right there in front of the front door. I went down on the front side of my body, face down, and
James Bernard Campbell stood above me to see if I was still breathing. I don't know why I did it, but I was able to hold my breath to pretend that I was dead. After he thought I was dead, he left the room and started ransacking the house to go through every room to find what he was looking for, which was money. This whole time, what's going through my head as the blood flowed across my face, and I watched my father's shoulders collapse to the floor. This is not real. This is not happening. And the reality did hit me, because it did happen. My father did die. But I did not know it at the time, because I pushed it out of my mind. I wanted to survive somehow, some way, so that I could save my father. He died and I survived, and I was determined that nobody else was going to be hurt if this man was caught, and he was caught a week later. The trial was finally started about a year and a half later, and it is still going on at this time, and it still hasn't ended for another year. My father is the one that has taught me a lot of things, and this is one of them. On the subject of the death penalty, what I learned from my father, he didn't make me believe this way. He gave me the knowledge to believe in it myself. And he gave me one example. And his example to me was, he started off by saying, why kill people who kill people to show that killing people is wrong? He also said, when he thought he was trying to give me an example, he used himself as that. He said, if anything were ever to happen to me, if somebody would kill me, I would still not want them to get the death penalty, which I can never erase from my mind, ever, ever, ever erase from my mind. It is imprinted in my mind, and it has helped me believe stronger and be more firm in my belief against the death penalty. Killing this man is not going to bring my father back, and never will. I don't condone what this man did, but I'm trying to pull through, heal myself, forgive this man, and do better things with the experience that happened instead of bad. I have a Bible that I had James Bernard Campbell's name imprinted on, and I keep offering to people because I don't know where I got this idea, but it seemed like such a start of a healing process throughout these years for me, is going to places and speaking to people and being around people that listen to me and want to help other people also. I give them the chance to write in the book a positive note, just their name, just something without their name, whatever they want to do. I will take this Bible when I'm ready to James Bernard Campbell and give it to him personally, myself. I will close in saying, that I forgive James Campbell, and I know my father would. My father's favorite hymn was, "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me."
Step by step, good people, step by step. Step by step, good people, step by step. There's a race we must run. There's a victory to be won. Every hour, feel the power to go on. Why don't you sing that with me? Step by step, step by step. Good people, step by step. Again. Step by step. Good people, step by step. There's a race that we must run. There's a race that we must run. There's a victory. There's a victory to be won. Every hour. Every hour, feel the power, feel the power to go on. Don't turn back, good people, don't turn back. Don't turn back, good people, don't turn back. There's a race, there's a race, we must run. There's a victory to be won. Every hour, feel the power, feel the power to go on. Things will change, good people, things will change. Things will change, good people, things will change. And there's a race, there's a race we must run. There's a victory to be won. Every hour, feel the power to go on. Through the grime, good people, and the grit. Though you get so sick and tired of it, there's a race, there's a race we must run. There's a victory to be won. When every hour, feel the power to go on. Step by step, good people, step by step. Step by step, good people, step by step. There's a race we must run. There's a victory to be won. Well, every hour, feel the power to go on. smushed together with a new song by a fellow named Rod McDonald. Well, I've sung this song, time to sing it again. Dust Bowl to Rust Bowl, the game never ends. The rich always write off their profits as loss, and it's you and it's me that get stuck with the cost. They say, so long, been good to know ya, don't have to pay what we owe ya. So long, it's been good to know ya, and here comes the bill for the billions we've spent. Funny, nobody knows where it went. Well, they cooked up a scam at the SNL Trifts, writing big loans like a loan was a gift. Doubled their salaries, bought second homes, then